Sunday, the 30th of April, is going to mark the anniversary of the title winning season for the 2021/2022 National League South side. This squad right here. 1 year on from that, it's time to take a little look back and see where they all are now. And I'm going to be going through every player who featured in that campaign last season and seeing whereabouts they are with their careers now. So we're going to kick things off with people who are still at the club in one way or another, at least. And for me, what we're going to be doing first is looking at those who are currently staying or very, very likely to stay. So, of course, the first person we're going to be taking a look at is going to be George Fowler. George Fowler has gone quite far, really, in his own career in this previous year. He has captained the club a number of times this season. He also just won Supporters Player of the Season. So, of course, a very, very big year for George on an individual level, something I think he'll be very proud of, and of course maintaining many of the good performances we saw from him last season in the South in this National League campaign. For me, I feel like he is going to stay. I feel like the recognition from the supporters is what's probably going to be a distinctive factor in that, and of course he's going to be someone we're going to need to build this team around. I mean, he's been here for quite a while now. He's been a very important player in the side for 2 years now, been very, very consistent in that time, and of course someone we'd all like to see back next season. So the next player we're going to be taking a look at is Sam Corn. Sam Corn, of course, still at the club, very injury prone of late, unfortunately. That has cost him many performances this season. Of course, been out for a very long spell with a horrible injury, so hopefully we'll be seeing him back soon. I do think he's going to stay. I think we'd like to keep him on. He's still a young player, someone I think will contribute a lot to this side going forward too. Dom Odesanya is also in that boat. I think he's going to be staying, of course. Not out of the side through injury, but out of the side through perhaps lack of favour, really. He has, of course, had loans this season out to Tunbridge Angels, I do believe, in the National League South. So I think that is a good indicator that we're looking to see how he can perform back in the South for next season. So I think we're going to be keeping Dom on board. Perry Yandelo is another player as well, who I think is going to be suiting this Maidstone team going forward. He can play in a couple of different positions. He can play in a more forward role. He can play in a central midfield role that we've seen from him in this season. And I think he is going to be very, very similar in that sense to his squad role next season, to that of maybe Bivesh Gurung, who of course is still at the club as well. Very likely to stay, it does seem. Featured a lot lately, of course, in a couple of different positions. I think that could be just the club trying to figure out where we could implement him for next season. Of course, he's also had a loan at Tunbridge Angels this season. Dom may have actually gone to Dulwich, but yes, Bivesh was definitely at Tunbridge. And again, I think that was a little kind of scouting mission to just see how he deals with first team football in the South on a more consistent basis. And for me, I think that those players will both be staying as well. I think that Nathan Jeke is someone who will likely stay too. Of course, not really within the first team squad last season, but definitely a name that was bandied about. And what a year it's been for him, of course. I mean, getting his first professional start for the club, earning himself trials at QPR of late, of course. If you haven't seen it, I did put up another video on the channel about Jeke and Jerome Binnon-Williams, so do check that one out. It explains a little bit more in depth what's happening there and my thoughts on the situation. And the last player that I'm convinced is going to be quite likely to stay is going to be Harley Earl. Of course, gone through a horrible injury of late, did have that fundraiser trying to help him out. Had multiple facial injuries that he received playing for Sittingbourne. So, of course, I think he'll be staying as more of a backup keeper, really, a more cheaper option who can provide a good bit of cover if necessary. And, of course, the last person, really, who is staying at the club, not really a player anymore, though. George Elokobi, of course. I mean, I think out of all the people on this list, he's had the most change, really. I mean, he's gone from club captain to leaving the club, going and doing his own thing, only for 6 months later for him to come back, find himself in an interim role, and to be awarded that full-time managerial position. So he will be leading this team into National League South next season. So it's going to be a very big year for George. He's got a lot to prove. It's going to be his first role in management, as was the interim that he got the first time around a couple months back. So the direction under George is seemingly becoming more apparent. Of course, we're seeing some of the older players leaving. Luke Binom, of course, Lowell left a little bit earlier on this season as well. And I think we're going to see maybe Gavin Hoyt go, and that is who we're going to get onto next. We're going to look at players who I think are unlikely to stay at the club, but are still with us currently. So, of course, Gavin Hoyt, Luke, Jerome Binon-Williams, I think those three players are all going to come under the same kind of situation. I mean, obviously we know about Luke and Jerome now. I think Gavin is someone who, despite his experience, despite his quality performances in the South next season, I'd be quite surprised if he stayed, just because of the fact that he's had these injuries, not getting any younger, and we are trialling out having different players as captain now. Of course, Fowler has had that armband on for a few weeks as well, and for me, I think that he is one of those players who's more likely to go. I don't think it's a dead cert, and I wouldn't be against him staying, of course. I think he's still got something to offer to this team. I don't know if he'd be a first choice consistent option every week for us next season, but certainly someone I think could prove very good in his leadership role. So we'll see how that one turns out. The next player we're going to be looking at, of course, I just mentioned, was Tom Hadler. Tom Hadler is, of course, very much out of favour at the club at the moment. I've said this in another video as well. I don't feel like I'd be too against him staying. I think he performed pretty well in the South last time around. But of course, this season, he's lost a lot of people's kind of loyalties in terms of his performances. They haven't been fantastic in the limited games he has played. Of course, good couple of mistakes that have become quite prevalent in costing us points at stages. So, I think that's probably going to see Hadler go. I think for his own career, he could probably do with a reset. Another guarantee of first team football will probably suit him a bit better. And I think we'll see Hadler go too. Another goalkeeper I think we'll see leaving is Yusuf Mersin. I do think he has to go for his own benefit. The relationship between him and the fan base is not fantastic, let's be fair. Come under a lot of criticism this season, and rightly so in some regards. Of course, he's made his mistakes, and I'm sure he'll own up to that. But unfortunately, sometimes criticism transcends into something a little bit further than that, and that's not always a good thing. And I think for him, the best thing to do would be to move on, find somewhere he can become a bit more comfortable playing his game. Looking at other people I think are unlikely to stay, Rafe Brown, Sean Walters, Rory Deacon and Regan Booty are the other players I've got on the list. Rafe, I'm very much undecided on. I do think he'll go again because of injuries. I think that George is becoming quite ruthless with players who have got a pretty poor injury record, and unfortunately for Rafe, that does seem to be the case. I would like to see him stay if he can maintain his fitness, but of course it's a very big if in Rafe's circumstances. I think that Regan Booty will probably go simply because he's just too good. There's so many links to him going back up north and playing for teams, and Oldham fans are even saying that Regan Booty is going to come to us. So, I think Regan's going to go. Of course, that's going to be a shame because he's very, very good friends with a couple of people in the squad. I've seen Sol Angel Smith quite a few times out and about, and a couple of times I've seen Regan Booty with him. So, I think that he'll be a big loss in terms of quality on the field and his relationships off the pitch. That's going to be the case for quite a few of these people. Sean Walters, I think he'll go simply because no matter where he plays, he never really gets that consistent game time. I think this will be a move for his own career. I think in maybe a lower end, middle table sort of National South team, he could be featuring week in, week out. He's definitely got that quality, he's got that ability, but I just think for his own development, he's going to want to go. He's probably not going to get a promise of first team football at Maidstone, and I think that's probably going to see him leave. And then Rory Deacon. Again, Rory Deacon is someone who I'd like to stay. Probably my most underrated player at the club at the moment. I think he's fantastic at what he does. Was second in the league for assists back in February. Considering where we were in February on the back of an awful run, lost a manager just a month prior, and he's still second in the division for assists at that point. So someone who thrives in a team that's playing well, and unfortunately doesn't really have the ability to carry an entire team on his back. Not many people in this division do. So unfortunately for Rory, I think or unfortunately for us, I think Rory's going to go. I think he'll find another team in the National League, a team like sort of Maidstone, something like that. A team who's in that sort of mid-table region. Someone maybe like Aldershot, just a team who's looking to build a little bit more, get some experience in the team, and maybe just get another quality player in the side. And I think he will be leaving too. So that's everybody who's currently at the club. Let's take a look at everybody who was here and is now gone already. So looking at people who've moved on since last season, we'll start off with Joe Lowell. Joe Lowell, of course, moved on to Sittingbourne. He did just win their Player of the Month for April. He is currently captain of the side as well. So I think for Joe, everything's going pretty smoothly over there. Getting married this summer as well. So congratulations to him. Capping off what seems to have been a pretty good debut season or half season for Sittingbourne for him. Taylor Curran, another player who plays in those defensive positions, is currently at Welling. Of course, didn't feature too much in that Maidstone side last season. Seems to be the story at Welling as well. Hasn't really played too many games. And unfortunately, I think for him, that's probably going to see another career move at some point. Michael Phillips, of course, did leave last summer, got rid of, and did end up at Barnet, of course. Was a bit out of favour there, didn't play too many games, more of a rotational player at times. And he's actually ended up on loan at Dulwich. And of course, Dulwich is a team we will get onto a little bit further on in this video, so keep Michael Phillips in your mind going forward. Alfie Pavey, currently playing at Braintree, 3 goals in his last 14 games for them. Not setting the world alight, but doing pretty steady in what is a good Braintree team. Jack Barham, of course, was sold not too long ago to Aldershot, the first player sale we've had in quite a while. Someone who, of course, captured the hearts of very many people, was the first in many upsetting losses for this Maidstone team in this last couple of months. And, of course, has only got the 1 goal since joining Aldershot at the time of recording, I do believe. May be wrong if I am, sorry Jack. But again, another player who's just finding his feet in a new team. I think we'll probably see how he performs next season. I think Aldershot probably going to stay up. So, we'll have to see how Jack gets on. But I think he's a good player. Everybody knows that. So hopefully he'll do pretty well for his own career. Christy Patterson, of course, another fan favourite, a bit of a cult hero really. His impact off the bench has been unrivalled over the last couple of years, and he has also ended up at Welling. So playing with Taylor Curran, if you did watch my transfer potential signings videos that I put out, also in a team with Adi Aziz and Taylor Maloney, a couple of Welling players who are performing pretty well this season, and players I think we could get in. So you never know. A kind word from Chrissy could get us quite far on that one. Hadi Gandor has actually just signed for Aldershot. If you follow me on Twitter at JP on comms, you would have seen me tweet it's time to re-record the Where Are They Now video, and this is my second time recording because Hadi did move on, and we've had, of course, the announcement of Jerome Binnon-Williams too. So yes, I thought it's fit to re-record. Gandor obviously done quite well to earn himself a move to Aldershot. I think some would probably question that. I think he's maybe more of a concrete National League South player. Definitely got something to offer to a team like Aldershot though if they do stay up. Very good option at times. Obviously a taller player, pretty quick when he wants to be, and I think if he can find his feet, he could probably start picking up the goals as well. So good luck to him. Reece Grant has been banded around the National League South quite a lot since leaving Maidstone last season. He even came back to the Gallagher a couple of times this season. I've seen him there watching on the side of the pitch, but currently playing at Hemel Hempstead. Scored, I think, on his debut, or at least got an assist, a goal contribution. Has been pretty successful at all of the clubs he's been at since leaving Maidstone. Got a couple of goals and assists everywhere he's been. So he seems to be doing all right for himself. Just can't quite find his feet at whatever club he's at the moment. So you never know. He may stay at Hemel. We may see him next season in the south. Max Sutton. Max Sutton was an interesting one for me. The natural successor to Gavin Hoyt. I did think that we were going to see him be really that first academy player, come through the ranks and slot into the first team. That obviously wasn't the case. He did end up leaving pretty much at the start of this season. Ended up at Kennington, where he's currently playing now. So, a good season for him. He's featuring pretty regularly, still in the side in recent weeks. So good luck to him. Hopefully we see his career progress a little bit further. You never know. We may see him playing for another National South outfit next season. Jake Gallagher. Jake Gallagher, a very interesting character, of course. His little spin for Dorking and his antics for Maidstone, of course, did keep him pretty fresh in people's memories, even though he did leave quite early on in this season. Of course, he did end up taking a bit of time out of football, I do believe, and did end up going to Rains Park Vale, where he's just won the league. So congratulations to him. I'm sure he'll be very happy with that. He's done quite well for himself since moving on, and that's all you can hope, really, for those kind of fan favourite little cult hero people in amongst the team. So the last person we're going to be taking a look at, who's actually confirmed move club, is going to be Hakan Hayrettin. Now, if you cast your mind back to a couple minutes ago, where I did mention that Michael Phillips is on loan at Dulwich Hamlet, it was Hakan that brought him in. So it's interesting how football goes in full circles sometimes. Of course, he did end up letting go of Michael Phillips, and ended up bringing him back. So maybe he thought he was a National South player, not a National League player. That's why he didn't want to take him up with us. But yeah, very interesting how that sort of stuff goes on. Hakan currently in a relegation scrap, very, very, very close to going down. It is going to go to the last game of the season, I do believe. So Hakan, we may see you next season, we may not, but I'm kind of hoping we do, kind of hoping we don't, because I feel if we do see him again next season, we're probably going to lose to him just for old time's sake. But I think it'd be nice to see him again in whatever capacity. It was always very nice to myself and other people who do the commentaries and things for the club. Very good with fans on a one-to-one level, of course. So I think that it'd be quite nice to see him next season, no matter what the circumstance may be. A player who has actually left the game is going to be Billy Johnson. Billy Johnson is, of course, someone who was a rotational goalkeeper for Maidstone last season, someone who did not feature all that much, and of course had his struggles with football during his time at the club. He did leave. He did end up at Tunbridge Wells FC at one point. And after leaving there, I could not find any trace of him online. I couldn't find any clubs that he'd been at. I couldn't find any tweets mentioning his name. Couldn't find anything. So I did actually have to reach out to the club and try and find out what happened to him. And I was informed that he's taken a step back from football for now. And of course, as a young player, that's sometimes the wisest thing to do. I think you need to really have it in your heart where you're going to go in your career, what you want to achieve, and you want to be in the right mindset for that. And I think it could be damaging if you're not. So props to him for making that decision. It's obviously a big call. Hopefully we do come across him again in the future. Someone who I think, if he got back into the game, could potentially be a National South outfit. So yeah, someone who I hope does quite well for himself, and I wish all the best. Now, taking a quick look over the loanees, of course, of last season, the most notable of which, of course, is going to be Joel Powell, the winner of the game against St Albans at home at the Tonto moment connoisseur, I suppose. And I mean, a fantastic little cameo, few appearances we saw from Joel Powell at stages last season. Someone I was disappointed we didn't see at the club again this season, but he is also playing for Dulwich in the National South. And again, I mean, it wasn't Hakan that brought him in, I don't believe, but it's going to be interesting to see him next season if he stays there. Of course, I'm sure Sean, who I do the podcast with on this channel, go check that out. If you haven't, we'll be getting a few photos with Powell next season if we come across him. Jermaine McGlashan is another player who we had on loan last season. I do believe he may well have been just a short-term contract. I think it was a short-term contract actually, but he did end up leaving around the earlier stages of the season, and he's actually managing Fleet Town now. Fleet Town, of course, not a massive club, but for your first club as a manager, I think that's pretty impressive. Of course, he did have a sort of interim stint with Leatherhead as well, but did end up getting released from there, ended up at Fleet Town, and he's trying to keep them up at the moment. So I wish him all the best as well. Very nice guy, Jermaine McGlashan, someone I've seen a few times since he's left, and seems to be doing pretty well for himself. So Ryan Sanford, the next player, of course, we all know about Ryan Sanford, did come back to us in this season and then left again through injury. And he is still contracted to Millwall, I do believe. I think he may be getting released this summer. I may be wrong. If he is, we've got to do everything we can to try and snap him up. Fantastic goalkeeper, of course. Jamil Chukwu, someone who we got in on loan, a young forward from Watford. Currently a free agent, I do believe. Very hard to find some things on him as a young player. and as far as I can find, he was released by Watford, so I do believe he's a free agent. Again, wish him all the best in his career too. And the last player on the list is going to be Mo Bettimer, someone who, of course, during his time at Maidstone did not set the world alight, was not exactly a fan favourite. But, of course, I'll never forget, he won us a penalty that started the comeback against Concord. I think that's all right for a career highlight. But, again, funny how things work. He is currently playing for Concord, who have just been relegated from the National League South. So, yes, football is a funny old game, and that is going to wrap up this video. If you did like it, taking a little look at all the boys on this page here, plus a few more, of course, thrown in, then do leave a like down below. Leave your comments on how you think the squad is going to look in a year's time. Who do you think our best player from this squad could be in a year's time? Who do you think is very likely to go? And of course, if you haven't already, do subscribe to the channel. Been getting loads more subscribers lately, and I'm ever so grateful for that. So thank you all so very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.